Hi, I'm David DeCosse, the Director of Campus Ethics Programs at the Markkula Center for Applied Ethics, and it's really my pleasure today to be here with Nathaniel Fick, the author of One Bullet Away, Making of a Marine Officer, and Nate spoke here today at Santa Clara University, gave a terrific talk. So thanks so much for being willing to do a little video after the talk and visit the campus.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Well, I thought for this video we might talk a little bit about a point you raised in your talk as a general framework, which is in some ways the distance between the military and civilians in contemporary United States, and you articulated a concern about that. I wonder if you might share with us a bit of your concern there, and we might pursue that a little bit.
Sure. I just have a view, I guess, a philosophical view, a historical view, that in a democracy it's important that the military not be too far apart from the people it serves. And that really works both ways. We ought to have a military that is representative of our society. It should be socioeconomically diverse. It should be geographically diverse. It should be politically diverse. And by the same token, we should have leaders in our civic life, politically, in the media, in business, who have some personal tie to the military. And only by having these two worlds linked closely together do I think we can achieve the optimal outcome, which is that we go to war less often and we're more committed to winning when we do. If they become too far divorced, then I think we run the risk of going to war more often and being less committed when we do.
Well, Nathan, institutionally I'm thinking, well, how do we bring something like that about? So, for instance, a draft, in a sense that might bring people together. I've heard arguments from Congressman Rangel and others along those lines. Mm-hmm. Should we reinstate the draft?
I mean, a draft is kind of the ultimate expression of what I'm talking about, but I think it's extreme, and so no, I don't think we should reinstitute a draft for a few reasons. One is that we can't afford it. If we were to have a draft that was in any way representative, that included a large section of the population, the military would be too big. And a big military is an expensive military, because the most important thing in the military, the most expensive thing in the military, it's not the jets and the ships and the tanks, it's the people. So especially now, given this age of austerity that we seem to be entering into, it's important that I think that we have a smaller, nimble, highly trained, very effective and efficient military, not a big lumbering kind of industrial age behemoth of the military, and conscription takes us down that road. Another problem with the draft is just, I think it undermines the whole notion of service. Military service today really is service. You are putting yourselves in the hands of the democratically elected decision makers, and it is true public service. When you compel people to do that, I think you begin to lose some of the public spirit of it. Also, the military today is so technologically advanced, it takes a long time to train somebody to be capable. And it begs the question then of how long you're going to draft people for. If it takes a year to train a basically capable infantryman, are we going to draft people for 2 or 3 or 4 years? And then we have to ask the question, well, is that politically even viable, or is it so unlikely that we should not really waste time in the conversation?
Yeah, I'm thinking of another major institution in our society that might help us bridge this gap between the military and civilian life here, and that being universities. And of course, us being here at a Jesuit university, these in some ways are questions that we, I think, ought to start considering more fully. Here at Santa Clara, we do have a ROTC unit and have had one continuously since the 1960s. What would you recommend, say, at a Jesuit university for how we might start thinking more creatively about really engaging our students who have never thought for a moment about the service, about the reality of the military in our country, and how they might think about that more realistically?
Well, one of the reasons I was even in the military is because of a debate over ROTC at my alma mater, Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. And I went to a talk in about 1997 where Tom Ricks, who was then the Wall Street Journal's Pentagon correspondent, came to campus and he talked about the civil-military divide. And in the course of his talk, he was advocating for the presence of ROTC on college campuses. And a faculty member stood up and she said to him, "Mr. Ricks, ROTC will militarize our campus and threaten our culture of tolerance." And he replied to her, "No, you're wrong. What it'll do is liberalize the military." And he didn't mean that politically. He meant what it will do is help ensure that the military has a cross-section of leaders in it that is representative of all of these great institutions in American life. And if a place like Santa Clara is proud of the leaders it's turning out and wants them to be relevant in the world and be engaged in the public life of the United States, my perspective is, how can you not have an ROTC program? Because as long as the US has a government, and as long as we have a military, and as long as we are engaged in the world, I would think that any institution would want its leaders to have a voice in that military and to be able to implement everything that they learned here, this sense of values and ethics, the leadership. It only seems natural to me that schools would want to have an ROTC program. I recognize that is sometimes unpopular, but one of the great barriers to it, I think, has just recently been removed with the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
If I might refine some of the things you've just said as a question, maybe to close the section with. Certainly within the Catholic tradition, which is behind us here at this Jesuit university, there is a Catholic pacifist tradition. And I know that tradition, a number of representatives from that have said, hey, listen, at a Jesuit university, you just shouldn't have, per se, an ROTC unit, because it is not reflective of the deepest Christian commitments to nonviolence that we all ought to observe. How would you respond to that criticism?
I mean, I respect that point of view, and I think that there are, this is a big country, it's a diverse country, and there should be room in this country for all points of view. And if indeed there are Catholic universities that want to take that course, I respect that. My response would be, well, you're making yourself less relevant. And if your mission is to train and prepare leaders to go forth in the world and make good decisions and help implement your values in society, please, as a citizen, I would say to you, please don't exclude them from this institution where we need them, where we need people who are well-trained, well-grounded in ethics, in moral decision-making, in a sense of public-mindedness. This country needs them in its corporations, in its universities, in our civilian political leadership, and I would argue in our military.
Well, thank you very much, Nate, for speaking, and that's David DeCosse and chatting here with Nathaniel Fick, author of One Bullet Away, The Making of a Marine Officer.